Well, with me now is Jonathan Sacerdoti, who's spokesperson for the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism UK. Thank you very much for coming in. Did Theresa May say what you wanted to hear?
Well, we were very pleased to hear Theresa May say those things in that speech here in London, saying that it was important that Britain has Jewish people as part of it and that without them, this would not be Britain. And that also she wants to take a tough line, as she discussed with us in our meetings with her just a couple of weeks ago, a tougher line on policing anti-Semitic attacks of every sort. We've been calling for zero tolerance of anti-Semitism, and it's good to hear the government listening.
This has highlighted it, but just how bad is it in the UK?
Well, British Jewish people have lived for many years under tight security at synagogues and community centres. So we've always known that Jews are a target for Islamist terror around the world. But this week, the world has woken up to that, because with those brutal killings over the last couple of weeks in France, and some of them aimed squarely at Jews in that supermarket, the world has seen that Jews have always been a target for Islamist terror.
And what has been the feeling with British Jews, given what happened last week?
British Jews are strong people, and we know that we have good security from the police, from the government, and also from Jewish organisations that take care of these things. But we can't be complacent, and we know that it's very important that we take threats seriously. Back in 2012, there was a conviction of a Muslim couple who had built a bomb that could have killed dozens, which they were planning to use on Jewish targets. We know that the threat exists, and we need continued protection. But we're not running scared, and we're not running away. We're here to stay, and we're here to say that it's time that Britain stands up to this, because this threat against Britain's Jews is not just a threat for Jews, but it's a threat for Britain.
And it's not only Jews, it's wider than that as well. It's religious freedom and the threat against that, isn't it, for all religions possibly in this country?
As I said, tolerance of every minority group is vitally important, and Theresa May said that in her speech. We need to be a tolerant and pluralistic society. However, Jews have always been a target for Islamist terror, and just as those cartoonists and journalists at Charlie Hebdo were a target because they uphold the Western values of freedom of speech, Jews have always been a target. And in France you can see that this is just the most recent of killings there. Jews were killed in Toulouse in a Jewish school, and a little further afield from France in Brussels there was the shooting in the Jewish museum of 4 people there. And these are also just the most deadly. There have been other brutal violent attacks on Jews across Europe and across France.
Now, you met with Theresa May recently, did you? Was that before the attacks or after them?
It shows that the government is already taking seriously this problem, but this has been a catalyst. Now the whole world has woken up and seen how Jews have been attacked for a long time, and in this context it got a lot of attention. We had millions of people gather in Paris to show their solidarity. That never happened when Jews were gunned down in their school in Toulouse, but at least it's happening now when people have realised that there's a connection between the killings of journalists and people like that and also of Jews.
Speeches are good, but what can be done physically and even within all of the communities and all of the minorities to make life here feel safer, at least for people, and perhaps be safer as well?
It's a good question, and what can be done is better policing, more visible policing, better protection of Jewish institutions and buildings. They're already well protected, as I said. Sadly, Jews having been persecuted and kicked out of almost every place they lived since all of their history, people are used to having to deal with this. But as I said, we're a strong community, and with the government's support and the police's help, increased policing, more visible policing, zero tolerance policy of anti-Semitism of any sort, and taking very seriously the discussions of Islamist terror, targeting groups like Jews and others simply for who they are and as a challenge to our Western values, that way we can start perhaps to turn this tide.
Just a brief final thought, but that poll last week showing that half of British Jews within the last 2 years have considered leaving. Is that still relevant this week, do you think?
Well, more like 1 in 4, but certainly around half have considered that there is no long-term future for Jews in Europe. These are important snapshots. You know, it's difficult to say how all Jews feel, but what we can see from this is a calculation based on the things that we hear all the time. People who've said, will our children, will our grandchildren be free to live as Jews as we are today in this country? And it's really important that Britain maintains that tolerant society so that they are, because nobody wants to leave. No one's packing their bags just yet, but we need to take this warning very seriously.
OK, Jonathan Sacerdoti, thank you very much for coming in.